This week, Ravensburger revealed the rest of Lorcana's 7th set, Archasia's Island. So in this video, we're going to go over the rest of the cards revealed in rarity order, so buckle up, it's going to be a really long one. However, I got really busy again at work, so to save time and to prevent the video from becoming incredibly long, I cut down some of the commons and uncommons I talked about. I got about 90% through the uncommons before I just simply ran out of time to produce the video. This spoiler season just came a little too fast, so I'll have to see how next season shakes out, and I might have to make some changes to the spoiler videos going forward. But let me know in the comments if you have any feedback on this method. Also, I posted a spoiler analysis video last week that covered 28 of the revealed cards from the set. I'm not going to go over those cards again in this video, so if you'd like to see my thoughts on those cards specifically, you can watch last week's video, which is linked in the card and also in the description. But before we get into it, I want to remind everyone to please like this video and subscribe to the Sorcerer's Hat for more Disney Lorcana content. I post brand new videos every Friday. Alright, let's not waste any more time, and let's get into the details. First up, we have all the legendary cards to get to. This is Donald Duck, Flustered Sorcerer. He is an uninkable 7-cost Amethyst character card with 5 strength, 6 willpower, and he quests for 3. He has 1 ability, Obfuscate. Opponents need 25 lore to win the game. This is a really cool card. Imagine dropping this on your opponent in the middle of Pack Rush, which just like doubles the amount of lore that you need to win the game. It's kind of amazing. I don't know if this card will be good or see a ton of constructed play, but I really love the flavor and the complexity that it brings to the game, and also the artwork is fantastic. And I know the artist said that it's not a Kingdom Hearts reference, but I'm just going to ignore the fact he said that and just believe in my heart of hearts that it is. Next up, we've got the Queen, Jealous Beauty. She is an inkable 4-cost Amethyst character card with 4 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 1, and she has 1 ability, No Ordinary Apple. Exert this character, choose 3 cards from chosen opponent's discard, and put them on the bottom of their deck to gain 3 lore. If any princess cards removed this way, gain 4 lore instead. I know this is a little bit of a gimmick, but I actually kinda like this card a lot, actually. It's almost like a reverse mill card, but with upside. And it might seem counterintuitive to put cards back into your opponent's deck, but it can actually be really good. You could put items back so that their Tamatoa can't grab them again, or their Bell can't cycle them back in for lore. You could put your opponent's Lilo back in their deck so they can't bring her back on their turn, and you get lore from doing it. So all in all, I actually really like this card, and I think it could see some constructed play, maybe, to combat some Ruby Sapphire or Steel Song decks, but we'll see. We'll see. I do kind of like it though. Next is a pretty interesting one. This is The Return of Hercules. It is an inkable 5-cost Emerald action card that reads, each player may reveal a character card from their hand and play it for free. On the surface, this looks fairly simple and maybe kind of bad, but it's actually kind of complex and can lead to some really interesting game states. I do think that if this card is played in tournaments, it's going to be responsible for a lot of judge requests, because the opportunities to mess this up are actually pretty substantial. I don't play a lot of Emerald, so I don't really know if I would ever run this myself, but I could see it being a really strong card in the right hands, and I feel like I need to make a short video about how to even resolve this card, because like I said, it's one sentence and it seems really simple, but it's actually kind of complicated. Next is Minnie Mouse Storyteller. She is an uninkable 2-cost Amber character card with 1 strength, 2 willpower. She has no lore and 2 abilities. The first one is Gather Around. Whenever you play a character, this character gets +1 lore this turn, and just 1 more. Whenever this character quests, chosen opposing character loses strength equal to this character's lore until the start of your next turn. I think this card could be really good in an aggro deck, especially if you're able to play a bunch of 1-drop characters the turn after you play this, and if you use things like Pride Lands and Pluto and stuff like that for free, then yeah, you could potentially play your entire deck for some kind of turn 3 OTK, which would be kind of incredible, but it is a little magical Christmas land. However, the stats are not great, and I don't think this is going to be very good on turn 2 itself, but I can see it being very strong in the right deck, and if your opponent just doesn't have the removal to deal with it, it could be a menace. Personally, I think the stats are kind of what hold it back for me, but I could be wrong. Maybe this is a sleeping dragon just waiting to strike. Next up is Mickey Mouse, Inspirational Warrior. He is an uninkable 2-cost steel character card with 1 strength, 1 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Stirring Spirit, which reads, during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may play a character for free. I think in the right circumstances, this card could be really strong, but it requires a lot of things to go right, and it probably requires a lot of things in your hand, like your opening hand, to also go right as well. That is, I guess that is if you want to have this happen on like turn 2. So it is a little bit of a gimmick in my opinion, but the times when you use this to cheat down a really high cost character really fast in the game, you're probably gonna love it. This feels very much like a 60% of the time, it works every time sort of situation, but it is cool and I love the art. I just also really love knights and stuff, so yeah, I actually am a fan of this. Next up is Lady Tremaine, Bitterly Jealous. She is an uninkable 6-cost emerald character card with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and she quests for 2. She has 1 ability, that's quite enough. Exert this character, return chosen damaged character to their player's hand, then each opponent discards a card at random. I'm not a huge fan of this card. It's heavily conditional, and to use her effect, it requires you to exert her and not to quest, which is a bummer because she has 2 lore, and you kind of want to be questing with characters that have 2 lore. So for a 6-drop, her stats are not that good, and I just don't see it. I'm not a big fan of this one. And that's it for the legendaries, so now we'll move on to the super rares. So first up for the super rares, we've got Mirabelle Madrigal, Musically Talented. She is an inkable 6-cost Amber Amethyst character card with 2 strength, 6 willpower. She quests for 2, she has Shift 4 and 1 ability, her own special gift. Whenever this character quests, you may return a song card with cost 3 or less from her discard to your hand. Honestly, her effect is kind of cool. The art is fantastic, and her stats aren't too bad, although the 2 strength does kind of hurt her a bit since she's vulnerable to brawl. Song recursion isn't something we've seen a lot yet, so I'm a fan of the card because of this effect. However, it's in Amber Amethyst, so you're most likely going to be using this to get cards like Friends on the Other Side back to sing again, which can be nice. I don't really know what deck this sees play in other than a strictly Madrigal deck, but in that archetype, it can be pretty cool, especially since Mirabelle has a few good shift targets. So I don't think this card's bad by any means, but I think it's going to be like really niche and only go in some very specific spots. Next is actually a kind of fascinating one that opens up some interesting rules questions. This is Pongo, Dear Old Dad. He is an uninkable 6-cost Amber Sapphire character card with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has 1 ability, Found You, You Little Rascal. At the start of your turn, look at the cards in your inkwell. You may play a puppy character from there for free. This has a really interesting effect that will no doubt be really good in the deck it's meant for. I hope that this sort of opens the door to more ink manipulation going forward, because being able to pull stuff from your ink well at will is a really cool idea. And honestly, there's a chance that Puppies is actually kind of a legit deck next set. It's probably not going to win Worlds or anything, but in your local meta, it could be pretty fun. You could get some wins off it. I could see it. Next is Hiro Hamada, Armor Designer. He is an inkable 7-cost Emerald Sapphire character card with 4 strength, 6 willpower, and he quests for 3. He has Shift 5 and 1 ability. You can be way more. Your Floodborn characters that have a card under them gain Evasive and Ward. This sounds strong on the surface, but how many cards on the board are actually going to benefit from this ability? I'd gather not many. I don't hate it, but I bet it will be incredibly annoying in the right deck. I don't see it being very strong in most lists. Next is Yzma, Above It All. She is an inkable 7-cost Amethyst Emerald character card with 3 strength, 8 willpower. She quests for 2. She has Shift 5, Evasive, and 1 ability, Back to Work. Whenever another character is banished in a challenge, return that card to its player's hand, then that player discards a card at random. Kind of an interesting ability, especially in Amethyst Emerald. This could go pretty well in a kind of hybrid discard tempo deck, which I don't think really exists, but it could just go pretty well in a tempo deck in general. But overall, I think this is a pretty cool card that might see some play maybe somewhere in a really goofy deck down the road, but I don't think we're gonna seeing a lot of play like anytime soon. Next up is Elsa Icemaker. She is an uninkable 7-cost Amethyst Sapphire character card with 5 strength, 5 willpower. She quests for 2. She has Shift 4 and 1 ability, Winter Wall. Whenever this character quests, you may exert chosen character. If you do, and you have a character named Anna in play, the chosen character can't ready at the start of their next turn. I love the art on this card, but I am not crazy about how conditional the effect is. It's only on quest and not when she enters play, which is a real bummer. Overall, I think I'd rather just play Spirit of Winter instead if I was going to play a high-cost shiftable Elsa. So I don't see this seeing a ton of play, but no, we'll see. Next up, we've got Goofy Extreme Athlete. He is an inkable 7-cost Ruby character card with 7 strength, 6 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has Evasive and 1 ability, Star Power. Whenever this character challenges another character, your other characters get +1 lore this turn. This reminds me a lot of Mulan Imperial Soldier, but instead of having to banish a character, you just need to challenge, which is nice. However, this card is really expensive and it doesn't have Rush, so your opponent will probably be able to play around it pretty easily. I like the effect, but I fear that it's just a bit too expensive to really work. Next up, we've got Show Me More. This is an uninkable 2-cost Amethyst action card that reads you and your opponent draw 3 cards. This is a really strong effect. The main downside is that your opponent gets cards, but you know, if you play this with like a Diablo Devoted Herald on board, you're drawing 6 cards. I don't think you would run this in every deck, but it is pretty strong, and in draft it's honestly incredible. So I don't know, we'll see, I guess. I don't think this sees a ton of constructed play, but I could be wrong. It might be good for aggro. All right, that is it for super rares, so let's move on to the rares. We've got Tuk Tuk Disarmingly Cute. He's an uninkable 2-cost steel character card with 0 strength, 1 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has Bodyguard and Resist 2. Overall, it's okay, but I feel like 99% of decks are probably just wanting to run Mr. Smee or Calhoun in the 2-drop slot. I'd say you could use this if you happen to be running a Floodborn Tuk Tuk, but none exist. So yeah, I don't know about this card. I don't think it's that good. It might be okay in draft, like just okay, but I don't think this card's really that good at all. All right, I can't believe I missed this card last week, but this is Ink Geyser. It is an uninkable 3-cost Emerald Sapphire action card that reads, each player exerts all the cards in their inkwell. Then each player with more than 3 cards in their inkwell returns cards at random from their inkwell to their hand until they have 3 cards in their inkwell. I have very mixed feelings about this card. On one hand, I don't like the kind of toxic playstyle it potentially represents. However, I feel like it's a card that only really works if you're already winning the game. If your opponent has a developed board and you play this, they likely don't care all that much. They're just going to ink their cards again. The only way you make this sort of matter is if you do this and then you follow it up with a Bend to My Will and make them discard a ton of cards. But even then, again, if they have a developed board state and you have no way to really come back from it, I don't know, man. I don't know if this really makes a difference. So we'll see. I know people got really up in arms about this card when they first saw it, and my first reaction was that I did not like it, but I do think it probably won't be as bad as people say, and I mean bad as in like it won't feel as bad when it's played against you, but I don't know. We'll see. Next is Madam Min, Cheating Spellcaster. She is an inkable 6-cost Amethyst character card with 4 strength, 5 willpower, and she quests for 2. She has 1 ability, Play Rough. Whenever this character quests, exert chosen opposing character. This is not a bad card. You get fairly good stats for the price, and her effect can be powerful, especially when you need to swing a game that's sort of in a lockdown board state. This will be a great top-end card in draft and might see some play in a few decks, but I don't know. Maybe not. It's probably more like for tempo-oriented Amethyst decks, but I think the whole doing this on quest is just not as good as playing like a Pinocchio or an Elsa, the 5th Spirit, and making it happen on play. So I don't know. It is a good draft card, but I'm kind of a little skeptical it might see any play in Constructed. Next up, we have Rhino, Motivational Speaker. He's an uninkable 6-cost Amber Steel character card with 4 strength, 7 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has 1 ability, Destiny Calling. Your other characters get +2 willpower. This is a pretty powerful effect that will make a difference in some games, especially in a Steel Mirror. However, it is uninkable and expensive, so I don't know what Amber Steel decks this really goes into. Nevertheless, it's a pretty cool card with good strats. In draft, this might actually just win you the game if you put this down at an opportune time, but I don't know if this really sees a lot of Constructed play. It's like a little too expensive to be good in Steel Song. Next is Fazo, I hope I'm saying that right. War Hero. He is an inkable 3-cost Steel character card with 2 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Training Exercises. Whenever one of your characters challenges another character, if it's the second challenge this turn, gain 3 lore. More support for the Combat Matters deck in Ruby Steel. For what this is, I don't think it's bad. However, this card is probably going to feel horrible if you top deck it in a moment of need. However, I could see maybe running 2 copies of it in the right deck. You can play this on a turn where you know you're about to pop off and get some extra lore, so I like it overall. In draft, it's probably pretty good as well. Next is John Silver, Vengeful Pirate. He is an inkable 8-cost Emerald Steel character card with 6 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has Resist 1 and 2 abilities. Drawn to a Fight. If an opposing character was damaged this turn, pay 2 ink less to play this character, and I Ain't Gone Soft. Whenever you play an action that isn't a song, you may deal 1 damage to chosen character. Once again, more support for the Emerald Steel Pirates deck. In that specific deck, this card is maybe pretty good. It is a little expensive and he isn't a Floodborn, so you won't be shifting this. This will probably only see play in that Pirates deck if it takes off, but I kind of doubt it sees play anywhere else. Next up is Aladdin, Research Assistant. He's an uninkable 4-cost Steel character card with 2 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has 2 abilities. His first one is Helping Hand. Whenever this character quests, you may play an ally character with cost 3 or less for free. And his second ability is Put in the Effort. While this character is exerted, your ally characters get +1 strength. This card doesn't seem too bad. Sapphire Steel have a good amount of ally characters to buff up or play for free. I don't think you auto put this in every Steel Sapphire deck, obviously, but it might be good in the right list. I don't hate it, but I don't really love it either. Next is Jasmine, Inspired Researcher. She's an uninkable 5-cost Sapphire Steel character card with 3 strength, 5 willpower, and she quests for 2. She has 1 ability, Extra Assistance. Whenever this character quests, if you have no cards in your hand, draw a card for each ally character you have in play. Man, it's super conditional that not having cards in your hand kind of is a bummer. I don't think you really play this much at all. It's kind of really narrow and it's uninkable and it's just, I don't know. I don't think it's that great. Next up is Raya, Guidance Seeker. She is an inkable 3-cost Steel character card with 1 strength, 4 willpower, and she quests for 2. She has 1 ability, A Greater Purpose. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, this character gains Resist 1 until the start of your next turn. I don't really like this card. It's best in Sapphire Steel where you can ramp up to give it more resist, but the stats aren't very good. So if you ramp up and you give this Resist 2, you know, what are you doing with it? I don't know. I'm not a fan. Next, we've got Kenai, Protective Brother. He's an inkable 4-cost Amber character card with 2 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, He Needs Me. At the end of your turn, if this character is exerted, you may ready another chosen character of yours and remove all damage from them. This is kind of cool, but at the same time, it kind of takes away your opportunity to heal with Rapunzel and draw cards, so maybe this goes in a different kind of deck. This is probably really, really good in draft though, so I would use it there, but maybe you just use Sven instead of this. I don't really know, but it's fine. Next is the Family Madrigal. It is an inkable 5-cost Amber Amethyst. It is an inkable 5-cost Amber Amethyst song that reads, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may reveal up to 1 Madrigal character and up to 1 song and put them into your hand. Put the rest on top of your deck in any order. In the Madrigal deck, this is obviously really good, and the fact that it lets you get a song and a Madrigal character and put them on top of your deck which lets you use Bruno's ability to get some lore, is actually kind of a good boost to that deck. I don't think this is going to make any kind of splash in the meta, but it is some solid support for that more casual deck archetype. Next, we've got Wreck-It Ralph, Hero's Duty. It is an inkable 6-cost Amber character card with 3 strength, 8 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Outflank. During your turn, whenever one of your other characters is banished, this character gets +1 lore this turn. The effect for this isn't great. You don't get much, and it requires you to lose a card in order for it to proc. This might be pretty good in draft just because the stats are really, really big, but I don't think this sees really any constructed play at all, unfortunately. Next is Daisy Duck, multi-talented pirate. She's an uninkable 8-cost emerald character card with 6 strength, 5 willpower, and she quests for 3. She has 1 ability, Foul Play. Once during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, chosen opponent chooses one of their characters and returns that card to their hand. The effect is really powerful, but it's so expensive and it's uninkable. There are ways to cheat this out cheaper, but I still think the cost just really inhibits its playability. So, I don't know, not a big fan of this. Next is Milo Thatch, Undaunted Scholar. It is an inkable 2-cost rupee character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower. He quests for 1. He has 1 ability, I'm Your Guy. Whenever you play an action, you may give chosen character +2 strength this turn. This isn't bad. I don't think you get the most out of this card on turn 2, however, since it probably will get removed the next turn. Ideally, you'd play this on the turn in which you play a separate action card so that you can take advantage of the ability. This might be pretty good in a combat-heavy deck, but I feel like maybe not. It might be pretty good in drafts if you can draft a lot of actions, but other than that, I don't really know if this sees a ton of play. It's just a little hard to set up. Next up is Cinderella, the Right One. She is an inkable 4-cost Amber character card with 2 strength, 4 willpower, and she quests for 2. She has 1 ability, If the Slipper Fits. When you play this character, you may put an item card named the Glass Slipper from your discard on the bottom of your deck to gain 3 lore. I'm not super convinced that this is very good. It relies very heavily on an item that's not all that great. However, getting 3 lore is pretty nice, but I think it's just kind of a gimmick. I don't think this is going to see very much play. Next up is Chernobog, Creature of the Night. He's an uninkable 5-cost Amethyst character card with 2 strength, 6 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Midnight Revel. When you play this character, each opponent chooses and exerts one of their ready characters they can't ready at the start of their turn. This card breaks my heart a little bit. I'm a huge Chernobog fan, and this card is just not that great. It's like a Tremaine for exerting characters, except they get to choose. The stats are not good, and there's just not a ton of reason to play this, unfortunately. I would, however, buy a playmat of this art though, because it is fantastic, but yeah, sad. I'm sad about this. Next up, we've got Shere Khan, Infamous Tiger. He is an uninkable 4-cost Emerald character card with 4 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 4. He has 1 ability, What a Pity. When you play this character, discard your hand. Discarding your whole hand is a lot to ask for, although questing for 4 is pretty nice. Discarding your hand though in a Amber Emerald kind of aggro deck might not be that big a deal, since we have Lady to get those characters back, or you can play something like Pongo to also get those characters back. So it might be pretty awesome in that deck, and this actually might be really awesome in draft, just because by the time you get to turn 4, you might really actually be out of cards, so it kind of won't matter. And questing for 4 is just amazing, so in draft, this card's actually pretty awesome, but this could be a pretty good card in an Amber Emerald aggro deck. Next up is All Is Found. This is an inkable 5-cost Sapphire Song, and which reads, put up to 2 cards from your discard into your inkwell face down and exert it. I think this is a pretty cool card, not only for Sapphire Steel, and honestly, maybe even for Blurple. Since Elsa can sing this pretty easily, it's probably going to depend on what list you're running and what characters could sing it. Obviously, Elsa is played in most of those decks and is a really good target to sing this song. Overall, I really like this card. I think it could actually see some play in some lists because it seems honestly pretty powerful. It seems pretty good. Next is a fun one. This is Lyle Tiberius Rourke, Crystallized Mercenary. He is an inkable 8-cost ruby character card with 6 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 3. He has 1 ability, Explosive. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, deal 2 damage to each character in play. I kind of love this card. Yes, it's expensive, but it's so fun. It's so flavorful. I think this goes really, really well in like a self-damage deck. But also, if you can ramp up to this, it will probably wreak havoc on aggro decks. Also, you know, spoilers for a 20-year-old plus movie, but I have a little bit of a soft spot for this card. It might not be the best card in the world, but it's very funny. It's very flavorful. I love it for all that. Next is Basil, Secret Informer. He is an inkable 6-cost emerald character card with 3 strength, 6 willpower, and he quests for 3. He has 1 ability, Draw Them Out. Whenever this character quests, opposing damaged characters gain Reckless during their next turn. This effect is pretty strong in an Emerald Steel ping deck. This also is probably a pretty good card in draft, but I don't think it's going to make it into most Emerald decks. Next up is Baymax, Upgraded Robot. He is an inkable 5-cost Sapphire character card with 3 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has support and 1 ability, Advanced Scanner. When you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a Floodborn character card and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. This is a pretty cool card that is best in some of the new Emerald Sapphire Floodborn lists coming up. Overall, I don't hate this card. It probably won't be super good in draft if you're not running at least a few Floodborn characters to dig for, but if you are, this is probably a pretty good way to get some card draw. So, I don't know. It's not too bad. Next is Maurice, Unconventional Inventor. He's an inkable 4-cost ruby character card with 5 strength, 2 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability. How on earth did that happen? When you play this character, you may banish chosen item of yours to draw a card. If the banished item was named Maurice's Machine, you may also banish chosen character with 2 strength or less. This kind of feels like a worse Hiram Flaversham, and for all of its effects to trigger, you need to banish a very specific item. That's also not that great. Also, the stats are a little weird, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that this card is not very good. Just keep playing Hiram. You'll be happier that way. Next up is Tramp, Street Smart Dog. He is an inkable 7-cost Amber Emerald character card with 2 strength, 6 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has 2 abilities. First one is Now It's a Party. For each character you have in play, you pay 1 ink less to play this character. And his second ability is House Pickings. When you play this character, you may draw a card for each other character you have in play, then choose and discard that many cards. This goes right into an Amber Emerald aggro deck, and while the 2 strength isn't great, the other stats are pretty decent, and if you're able to play a wide board before this, you can get it out much, much earlier. The potential card draw is pretty nice, but you know, I don't think you choose to draw a card for every single character you have because you have to discard cards. It's gonna be a game by game basis, turn by turn, maybe even basis, how many cards you choose to draw and discard. Like you might only do 1 or you might do none. So we'll see. In draft, I think this is a pretty excellent card. And in that specific deck, I think it could also be a really, really good card. So I kind of like it. It's not bad. Next is Restoring the Crown. This is an uninkable 6-cost Amethyst Steel action card that reads, exert all opposing characters. Whenever one of your characters banishes another character in a challenge this turn, gain 2 lore. This is an uninkable high-cost action, so that alone is a huge negative, but if you can pull this off, it is a very strong effect. It actually works really well in an Amethyst Steel deck. I don't think this will see a ton of play, but I actually think it kind of has some potential in very specific lists. We'll see. My gut says no, but you know, I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Next up is Dawson, Puzzling Sleuth. He is an uninkable 1-cost Sapphire character card with 1 strength, 2 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Be Sensible. Once during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, look at the top card of your deck. You may put it on either the top or the bottom of your deck. This is a fairly good card on turn 1, I think. The stats aren't incredible, but I do like the ability. And I don't think this makes it into many decks, though, unfortunately, just because the bar is so high these days. And if you're going on the draw against Amber Steel or Steel in general, and you play this on turn 1, you might not be able to even activate this ability. It's probably just going to get blasted. So in that instance, it would be absolutely awful, but I think it's okay. But like I said, the bar is so high for constructed decks right now that I don't think this sees a lot of play. Next, we've got Tramp, Enterprising Dog. He is an inkable 2-cost emerald character card with 1 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 2 abilities. The first one is Hey Pidge. If you have a character named Lady in play, you pay 1 ink less to play this character, and his second ability is No Time for Wisecracks. When you play this character, chosen character of yours gets +1 strength this turn for each other character you have in play. The first time I read this, I wasn't a huge fan of this, mainly just because I think I was focusing too much on the having a character named Lady in play and paying 1 less to play it. However, upon thinking about it a little more in the context of an Amber Emerald aggro deck, I think this card is basically like the Merlin Crab of that deck, and actually is pretty good. This might see play in that deck. If the Amber Emerald aggro deck with all the dogs and the pets in it is actually really good, this is a really good card. Other than that, I don't know. I probably would play this in draft though, just because it's like having a crab basically. I mean, it's a little conditional, but man, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. I kind of like it. That's it for the rares, so it's time to move on to some uncommon cards. First up, I had to pick this one because it is just in the conversation right now. This is Sapphire Coil. It is an inkable 2-cost Sapphire item card that reads, during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may give chosen character -2 strength this turn. I do think this card is kind of amazing and possibly busted. It feels like a straight upgrade to Ruby Sapphire in some instances. It's definitely a straight upgrade to Emerald Sapphire decks, and I do think this might cause people to start running more item destruction again because it is kind of strong. However, I do feel like in Ruby Sapphire, if you're trying to run Bell, you kind of, in some lists, might hurt yourself when you run this instead of Ice Block, but I don't know. Originally, when I was building my new version of Red Blue to test in the next week or two, I had this in there, and then after I put Bell in, I thought about it, and I kind of wanted to increase the chances of playing her on turn 1, and so I took this out and put Ice Block back in. I don't know. I'm not sure. I am surprised that this is a little, like, this is uncommon, because I do think it's one of the best cards in the set, but I do think people are overreacting a little when they say that it's overpowered. We'll see. I do like it a lot, but I am skeptical that it's going to make it into my version of Ruby Amethyst, but obviously, or excuse me, not Ruby Sapphire, but we'll see. I do think it's a really strong card though, nonetheless. Next is Baymax Giant Robot. This is an uninkable 6-cost Emerald Sapphire character card with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has Universal Shift for 4, which means that he can shift onto any character, and he has 1 ability, Functionality Improved. When you play this character, if you used Shift to play him, remove all damage from him. I think this is a pretty cool card. It's super flavorful. I like the idea that the mech suit can just shift onto any character. And I saw some pretty funny memes where people put like Tipo inside the suit because you could actually shift this on turn 3 after using a Tipo. Well, I think this is pretty cool. I don't know how much constructed play it will see, since Emerald Sapphire kind of seems like it wants to bounce and control characters rather than straight up fight them, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you need something like this to just like pressure your opponent and also just reuse the Tipo in this instance for like a beefier character that can maybe take out like a Smee or something, and also maybe quest for 2 lore. So, you know, either way, I actually really like this card. I think it's pretty cool. It's probably going to see some play at your locals, like no doubt. Next is Tweedledee and Tweedledum Strange Storytellers. This is an inkable 5-cost Emerald Ruby character card with 4 strength, 4 willpower, and a quest for 2. They have 1 ability, Another Recitation. Whenever this character quests, you may return chosen damaged character to their player's hand. Not a bad ability that synergizes with Emerald Ruby is kind of like taking advantage of damaged characters or capitalizing on their already being damaged. I don't think this is terrible. It has potential, but again, only being able to do it when the character has quested, it's kind of a bummer, but I think it has some potential. It's going to really depend on how that deck turns out being. Next is Thunderbolt Wonder Dog. This is an inkable 5-cost Amber Sapphire character card with 3 strength, 7 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has Puppy Shift 3, which lets him shift on top of any puppy character, and he has Bodyguard. This is a pretty cool card for the Puppies deck, which is honestly shaping up to be like kind of all right. Like I might kind of try it out. The stats are pretty good, and the ability to shift onto any puppy character on like turn 3 is pretty great. So this is a pretty cool card overall. I don't hate it. I think it's pretty cool. Next is Hey Hey Expanded Consciousness. He's an inkable 5-cost Sapphire. He's an inkable 5-cost Sapphire Steel character card with 1 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has Shift 3, Resist 1, and 1 ability, Clear Your Mind. When you play this character, put all cards from your hand into your inkwell face down and exerted. This card is potentially kind of crazy. I love the flavor of it, but the main downside is that you lose your entire hand after you play this. And of course, playing this when you have no cards in your hand sort of defeats the purpose. It's gonna require some testing, but I do think it's kind of awesome, and runner-up for one of the best arts in the set and one of the best subtitles in the entire set. Next is Giant Cobra Ghostly Serpent. This is an inkable 3-cost Amethyst Steel character card with 4 strength, 4 willpower. It quests for 1. It has Vanish and 1 ability, Mysterious Advantage. When you play this character, you may choose and discard a card to gain 2 lore. There was a lot of conversation about this card when it was revealed, and I do think it's really good. Yes, it's an illusion, but the ability to get 2 lore immediately and then put an overstated 3-drop on the board is just too good, so Vanish is sort of required to just keep this in check. Regardless, I think this card's gonna see a lot of play. It's really good. Next up is the Phantom Blot Shadowy Figure. This is an uninkable 2-cost Ruby character card with 3 strength, 1 willpower, and he quests for 1, and he has Rush, so it's a French vanilla. This is basically the Rush Stitch that already exists in the game. Play this in draft, but otherwise I don't really see it seeing much play at all. Next is Wendy Darling Pirate Queen. She is an inkable 7-cost Amber Ruby character card with 5 strength, 7 willpower, and she quests for 2. She's evasive and she has 1 ability, Tell No Tales. Whenever one of your other characters is banished, you may remove all damage from chosen character. The art on this is really cool. The effect is kind of meh, though. But in the right deck, I could see it being okay. But it already requires you to have multiple characters on board to use this efficiently, so I don't really see it seeing a ton of play, unfortunately. Next is Double Trouble. This is an inkable 2-cost steel action card that reads deal 1 damage each to up to 2 chosen characters. This isn't terrible. I think it's okay in a ping deck or like Emerald Steel Pirates, but other than that, it's kind of not great. You could do better. Next is Anastasia Bossy Stepsister. She's an inkable 3-cost Emerald character card with 3 strength, 1 willpower. She quests for 2, and she has 1 ability. Oh, I hate this. Whenever this character is challenged, the challenging player chooses and discards a card. There's a lot of 1 damage actions in this format, so I don't see it really being great in draft. And by format, I mean like draft. But if your opponent doesn't have any of those, I guess this is like free to lore because they're probably not going to want to challenge it. This could be played in some constructed decks, but against Steel, you're going to feel really bad, but it's going to feel really good against Ruby. So I don't know how I really feel about it. I'm kind of like, yeah, it's okay. It's sort of my gut feeling. Next is Cirque Unruly Knight. This is an inkable 2-cost Ruby character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower, who quests for 2, and he's a vanilla card. This probably won't see any meaningful constructed play, but it is a solid draft pick. So, you know, it's not bad in draft, but I think this is probably just a bulk card. Next is Snow White, Fairest in the Land. She is an inkable 4-cost Amber character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower, and she quests for 2. She has 1 ability, Hidden Away, which reads, this character can't be challenged. I love the art on this card, and the effect can be kind of insane in draft, especially if they have no removal. You just keep questing with this, and just really, really hard to remove. In Constructed, though, I don't really know where this goes, but the effect is still pretty strong in some circumstances, and it is inkable, so this would be a really good tech card if you're playing against something like Blurple, or if you're playing against like a Combat Matters type of deck, but my gut kind of tells me this is mostly a draft card, but I do love the art, and I do think that this card is still pretty good. It's just really hard to fit most cards into decks these days, and I just don't really know where this fits. Next is Jebediah Farnsworth, Expedition Cook. He's an inkable 4-cost Sapphire character card with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has support and 1 ability, I got your 4 basic food groups. When you play this character, chosen character gains resist 1 until the start of your next turn. This feels like a Sapphire Steel card first and foremost, but I also struggle to think of what you really want to be targeting with this. And most of the time, even in Sapphire Steel, I think I'd rather be playing Hiram or Grandma Tala on 4. So, I don't know. Sorry, Jebediah. I don't think you're going to see a ton of play, unfortunately. Next is Anna Icebreaker. This is an inkable 4-cost Amethyst Sapphire character card with 2 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 2. She has support and 1 ability, Winter Ambush. When you play this character, chosen opposing character can't ready at the start of their next turn. This is okay. I see this being actually kind of good in draft as a way to capitalize on an exerted character. It also synergizes with the Elsa from this set, but I don't really see this making its way into Blurple unless someone invents some new type of Blurple deck soon that is heavy on frozen characters, but it's fine. It's fine, I guess. Next is Penny Bolt's Person. She's an inkable 2-cost Amber Steel character card with 1 strength, 2 willpower. She quests for 2. She has 1 ability, Enduring Loyalty. When you play this character, you may remove up to 2 damage from chosen character, and they gain resist 1 until the start of your next turn. I wouldn't play this on turn 2, but in draft, I think it's really, really good, and it's inkable, so it's not like a bad card by any means. I'd say I like it overall, but I just don't really know where it goes in Constructed, so I mean, it's fine, I guess. It's fine. Next up is Steel Coil. This is an uninkable 2-cost steel item card that reads, during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may draw a card, then choose and discard a card. This is okay, but it's uninkable. The effect is only helpful in certain instances. The tempo loss of playing this on turn 2 just cannot be overstated, especially when you can play stuff like Smee instead. I can see this being pretty good in draft, but I just don't really see it being too useful in Constructed, unfortunately. Next is Ruby Coil. This is an inkable 2-cost Ruby item card that reads, during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, chosen character gets +2 strength this turn. I think this is actually okay. I wish that maybe it was an uninkable 1-drop instead, but at the same time, it's not bad. I think it goes best in combat-heavy decks to allow lower-costed characters to trade better, and I like it overall. I just don't quite know where it goes, and just like the last card, playing an item card, a 2-cost item card like this, feels like a big tempo loss, especially in this meta right now, so I don't know. Next is Amber Coil. This is an inkable 1-cost Amber item card that reads, during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. I know I just said that I liked inkable 1-cost item cards more, but I'm not a huge fan of this. I don't really know what deck this wants to go into, since most Amber decks are probably running things like Rapunzel so that they can draw cards, which Amber normally has a really hard time doing otherwise. So, I don't know. Not a huge fan of this. I would probably play it in draft, though. It's kind of decent there, just to keep your characters alive. But, yeah, I don't like this card. Next is Maurice's Machine. This is an inkable 3-cost Ruby Sapphire item card that reads, when this item is banished, you may return an item card with cost 2 or less from your discard to your hand. I don't like this card. It's overcosted, and it's just not that great. I don't think this card's that good. Next, this is Fix-It Felix Jr., Pint-Sized Hero. He is an inkable 5-cost Amber Ruby character card with 4 strength, 4 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has 1 ability, Let's Get to Work. Whenever you return a Racer card from your discard to your hand, you may ready chosen Racer character. They can't quest for the rest of this turn. Man, you need other cards to activate this card's effect, and then when you do, you're readying another character, so you're probably needing like 3 cards at minimum just to ready a character. It's like, oh, this isn't that great. You could just play like Fan the Flames for 1 ink and just skip all these steps. So I think this card's really bad. Next. This is Helga Sinclair, Tough as Nails. She's an uninkable 2-cost steel character card with 0 strength, 4 willpower. She quests for 1. She has Challenger 3 and 1 ability, Quick Reflexes. During your turn, this character gains Evasive. I guess this is okay. It'll be pretty good in draft, but I don't really think this sees a place in constructed, but I don't think it's terrible. It's just, you know, like I said, it's really hard to find space for anything that's not like super amazing these days in a deck. So I don't know. Next is Li Shang, newly promoted. This is an uninkable 3-cost Ruby Steel character card with 2 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 2 abilities, I Won't Let You Down. This character can challenge ready characters and Enormous Responsibility. While this character has damage, he gets +2 strength. Man, I feel like this card is almost there. I kind of wish it was like a 3/4 that cost 4, and then I think I would like it more. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. It might warrant a little testing. I think it's just kind of all right, honestly. Next is Fidget Sneaky Bat. This is an inkable 4-cost Emerald Ruby character card with 2 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has Evasive and 1 ability, I Took Care of Everything. Whenever this character quests, another chosen character of yours gains Evasive until the start of your next turn. My only complaint about this card are the stats. They're a little low, other than the lore. Having 2 lore and being evasive is awesome. But other than that, this was kind of a nice ability. Just sort of wish it was on play instead of quest, but this is a really good draft card because it's evasive, it has 2 lore, and chances are you'll be able to give something else evasive that wouldn't normally have it, and it might help win the game. So in draft, really, really good card. In constructed, don't know. Not sure. Next up is Gizmo Duck, Suited Up. This is an inkable 4-cost Emerald Steel character card with 4 strength, 3 willpower, who he quests for 1. He has Resist 1 and 1 ability. This character can challenge ready damaged characters. I don't mind this card. I think it excels in like a ping deck. Will probably be pretty good in draft. Overall, it's decent, but I don't know. I don't really think this sees play in most Emerald Steel decks at all. Next up is Beagle Boys, Small Time Crooks. This is an inkable 4-cost Ruby Sapphire character card with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and they quest for 2. They have 1 ability, Hurry It Up. Whenever this character quests, chosen character of yours gains Rush and Resist 1 this turn. This is a cool card. However, if you play this on 4 and you want to take advantage of its ability on 5, there aren't a lot of super great targets for you to use to take advantage of. One that came to mind for me was Mulan Imperial Soldier, which would buff your other characters by giving them an additional lore. But then Beagle Boys wouldn't get to take advantage of it, which is kind of a shame because they have to quest first to give, you know, her the ability to rush in and get this. So this card might be amazing in time. Right now, I think it's pretty cool, but probably not the best card. Next is Emerald Coil. This is an uninkable 3-cost Emerald item card with 1 ability, Shimmering Wings. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, chosen character gains evasive until the start of your next turn. Oh man, I don't like this one at all. I doubt this sees play anywhere. I think this is kind of bad. Next up is Amethyst Coil. This is yet another uninkable 3-cost Amethyst item card that reads, during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may move 1 damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character. Dude, why is this uninkable? And 3. This doesn't even seem all that strong. It's so expensive. I'm not a fan of this at all. I don't think this is very good at all. Next up is Moana Island Explorer. She's an inkable 4-cost Ruby character card with 4 strength, 3 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has evasive and 1 ability, Adventurous Spirit. Whenever this character challenges another character, another chosen character of yours gets 3 strength this turn. I like the stats on this card. I like that it's evasive. but I think the ability is just fine. This is another good draft card, but I think it might be tough to fit even into like a Combat Matters deck since there's just a ton of really good cards already fighting for space in there. So it's fine, but I think this is mostly a draft card. Next is the Prince, Vigilant Suitor. He's an uninkable 2-cost Amber character card with 0 strength, 5 willpower, and he quests for 1, and he has Bodyguard. I think this is a great draft card. It's probably not the best card in Constructed, although 5 willpower, not terrible. In Ruby though, this is going to be like a terrible thing to play, I think, just because it's so easily removed by a lot of the cards in Ruby Sapphire. But the high willpower is pretty nice, and yeah, I don't know if I would play this Constructed, but it is a good draft card. Next is Mirabelle Madrigal, Hopeful Dreamer. She's an inkable 3-cost Amber Amethyst character card with 1 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 1, and she's evasive and has Singer 5. I like this card. The stats are a little low, but the utility it provides for the Madrigal deck is really, really good. And I think this could also be really good in draft if there's like a good song that you want to sing, but yeah, I think this mostly goes in the Madrigal deck. Next is Diablo Spiteful Raven. This is an inkable 2-cost Amethyst Emerald character card with 1 strength, 2 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has Evasive and Challenger 2. This is decent in draft, but I don't think I would play this anywhere else, unfortunately. Next up is Coda, Smallish Bear. This is an inkable 3-cost Amber character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower, and he quests for 3, but he has no abilities. He's a vanilla. So if you manage to play this without getting brawled, it's kind of mean because you're just getting a lot of lore really fast. In draft, this card will be absolutely amazing. But in Constructed, I could see it maybe thriving well in an Amber Steel aggro deck, or possibly an Emerald Amber, like Lemon Lime aggro deck, but I don't know. It might be kind of hard. This might be pretty easily removed. I don't think this sees a lot of Constructed play. Next up is Magical Maneuvers. This is an inkable 2-cost Amethyst action card that reads, return chosen character of yours to your hand, exert chosen character. I don't hate this. I could see it being really good in draft in some other specific Amethyst decks, but I don't think it's going to see a lot of Constructed play just because it takes up an entire slot. And, you know, you could probably just play like Fox over this and say, yeah, whatever. You know, they're going to exert characters anyway, but yeah, I don't know. It's okay, but it's a pretty good draft. Next is Madame Medusa Diamond Lover. This is an inkable 4-cost Amethyst Ruby character card with 3 strength, 4 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has 1 ability, Search the Swamp. Whenever this character quests, you may deal 2 damage to another chosen character of yours to put the top 3 cards of chosen player's deck into their discard. Man, I don't really like this. The color combo seems like a weird choice for milling, so yeah, not really a big fan of it, you know? I don't know. I don't think it's that great. Next is Archimedes Exceptional Owl. This is an inkable 2-cost Amethyst character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower, and he quests for 1, and he has 1 ability, More to Learn. Whenever an opponent chooses this character for an action or ability, you may draw a card. I like the ability on this, but how often is your opponent actually going to target this lowly 2/2 that only quests for 1? Probably not that often, so I don't see this going off very much. I don't think it's that great. Next is Peg, Natural Performer. This is an inkable 3-cost Amber Emerald character card with 2 strength, 4 willpower. She quests for 1. She has 1 ability, Captive Audience. Exert this card. If you have 3 or more other characters in play, draw a card. This could work in an Amber Emerald aggro deck, but nowhere else, and the earliest you could activate it's turn 4. And you have to have none of the characters you played in the previous turns get banished before then, which might be pretty difficult. So, I don't think I'm a huge fan of this, honestly. Next is Cusco, Panicked Llama. This is an uninkable 4-cost Amethyst Emerald character card with 2 strength, 2 willpower. He quests for 2. He has Evasive, and we can figure this out. At the start of your turn, choose 1. You can either have each player draw a card or each player choose and discard a card. I'm not a big fan of this. The stats are not very good. It's uninkable. I don't think this is going to see very much play, honestly. Next up is Mufasa Among the Stars. This is an inkable 7-cost Amethyst Steel character card with 5 strength, 7 willpower, and he quests for 2. He has Shift 5, Evasive, and Resist 1. The stats on this are pretty great, and it will be hard to remove this if you put it down. But I worry that there are other things in Amethyst Steel that you'd probably rather be playing instead, but it's not a bad card by any means. I think it's actually pretty decent. Next is Yokai, Intellectual Schemer. This is an inkable 2-cost Emerald Sapphire character card with 1 strength, 2 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Innovate. You pay 1 ink less to play characters using their shift ability. This card would actually allow you to play the Baymax mech a turn early on turn 3, which is actually pretty good. Other than that, I don't see a ton of utility for this card because the stats are so low. It's pretty easily removed. This is maybe one of those cards that just gets better and better as time goes on. I think it has potential, but I think other than just playing it to get the Baymax out a turn earlier, I don't really know. I don't know if this sees a ton of play. Next is Mr. Smee, Efficient Captain. This is an uninkable 3-cost Emerald Steel character card with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has 1 ability, Pipe Up the Crew. Whenever you play an action that isn't a song, you may ready chosen pirate character. This could be okay in Emerald Steel Pirates, but I don't really see that deck taking off anytime soon, so I don't think it's going to see very much play. Next up is Lady Cluck, Protective Confidant. This is an inkable 5-cost Sapphire Steel character card with 2 strength, 7 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has Bodyguard and Ward. At first I thought this was a pretty cool card, but honestly it's a Chen Po that's not as good. In draft, this card is a monster for sure, but in constructed, I probably would not play this over a Chen Po, even though it has Ward. Chen Po is just better. Next up is Perla, Nimble Seamstress. She's an inkable 3-cost Amber Emerald character card with 3 strength, 2 willpower. She quests for 1, and she has Evasive and Support. This is a pretty good card, and I think it works fairly well in a Lemon Lime aggro deck, and will be a really, really good card in draft. So overall, I actually dig this card a lot. Next is Pascal Garden Chameleon. It is an uninkable 4-cost Amber Amethyst character card with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and he quests for 3, and he has Evasive. I think this is a really good aggro card, but the high cost and uninkability kind of drags it down. I think this is a really good draft card, but maybe it doesn't see play anywhere else. Next is Sven, Keen-Eyed Reindeer. This is an inkable 5-cost Amethyst Sapphire character card with 2 strength, 6 willpower, and he quests for 1. He has Rush and 1 ability, Formidable Glare. When you play this character, chosen character gets -3 strength this turn. I'm a little torn on this card. I've heard some Blurple players tell me that it's really good, but I feel like it doesn't wholly replace Elsa. I'm not sure. My gut tells me that this probably won't see a ton of play, but I have been wrong before. Next is the Troubadour, Musical Narrator. He's an inkable 2-cost Amber Steel character card with 1 strength, 3 willpower. He quests for 1, and he has Resist 1 and Singer 4. I think this is a pretty cool card for a Steel Song. There's some debate on whether or not this replaces Ursula Vanessa in that deck, and I think it's really probably going to depend on your list and how much you want to capitalize off the Rapunzel heal, but overall, I think this is a pretty cool card. All right, that's it for all the uncommons that I could get to. We're going to wrap this up with probably all of the best notable common cards, but if I missed one, just let me know in the comments and I will give you my opinion on it. This is the talk of the town right now. This is Belle, Apprentice Inventor. She is an inkable 3-cost Sapphire character card with 3 strength, 3 willpower. She quests for 1, and she has 1 ability, What a Mess. During your turn, you may banish chosen item of yours to play this character for free. This card is kind of insane. It really shores up a weakness in Sapphire and makes its matchup into Steel Song and aggro decks just so much better. Honestly, I love this card, and I really want to get a full set of foils for it, and this is 100% going to see play next season. Hold on to your bells. This card's awesome. It's so good. Next is Training Staff. This is an inkable 2-cost Steel item card that reads, exert this item and pay 1 ink. Chosen character gains Challenger 2 this turn. I think this card is decent in Ruby Steel and reminds me a bit of Imperial Bow, but maybe not as useful. Still, I don't think it's all that bad, but I do think that being uninkable and 2-cost kind of hurts it in the long run. Next is Queen of Hearts, Losing Her Temper. This is an inkable 2-cost Ruby character card with 1 strength, 4 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has 1 ability, Royal Pain. While this character has damage, she gets +3 strength. This card goes great in a self-damage deck and is a really good shift target for the Emerald Ruby Queen card in the same set. I don't hate it, I still sort of feel like I'd rather play the 2-cost 2/2 with Rush, but this isn't bad either. Next up is Mulan Disguised Soldier. She is an inkable 1-cost steel character card with 2 strength, 1 willpower, and she quests for 1. She has 1 ability. Where do I sign in? When you play this character, you may draw a card, then choose and discard a card. This is an alternative Mulan shift target for Ruby Steel, and arguably better in that deck than the Injured Soldier card, since you won't be able to heal it. It also helps you filter out some cards you don't want early on in your hand. So yeah, I think this card's actually pretty awesome. And finally, this is Water. This is an uninkable 1-cost Sapphire action card that reads, look at the top 4 cards of chosen player's deck, put 1 on the top of their deck, and the rest on the bottom of their deck in any order. I like this card. I used to use some cards like this with similar effects when I played Magic the Gathering, and I would either use them to look at the top of my deck or use them as like political tools against other players in multiplayer formats. I don't really know if this sees much play, but I do think it's a strong effect that could see play sometime down the road. And that's it. I know I couldn't get to everything. Spoiler season just came so fast, and it came like at the worst time for just my work-life balance. So really tough to get to literally every card, but you know, I managed. Overall, I do think this set actually looks like it's going to be a ton of fun, and it adds some really cool mechanics and interactions into the game that we haven't seen before. And I'm really excited that a lot of other ink pairings that we haven't really played because they're not all that good are gonna see play. So yeah, this is cool. I'm pretty excited. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe to the Sorcerer's Hat for more Lorcana videos. I post a new one every single Friday. I hope you all have a great day. Bye-bye. Love you.